Hello and welcome to the Why the Post-Liberalism Fail podcast. My name is James Patterson. Today is August 8th, 2025. Today we are just Thomas Howes and I. Did I do it right?
Yeah.
I did it. And I am especially fried because I took my wife to the hospital last night to deliver a baby that decided she was not ready to be delivered after all. And I just woke up. I it's in the afternoon here, and I am zonked from an evening of dealing with a very shy baby. But we are going to talk about Francisco Franco again. This emerged as an online debate over Franco that emerges about once every 2 months. I can't even remember how it got started. I remember I said that Franco was a fascist monster, and people got um, very upset about this. Some people were upset because they have bespoke definitions of fascism that I don't have patience for, and the other
Yeah.
is because they did not think of him as a monster. And that's where you
Mhm.
picked up, making some statements about Franco as a monster. And then a man named Pascal Emmanuel Gobry decided to run a defense on the position. Do you have that in front of you, or do you want me to read it? I just don't want to hog the mic.
Yeah, I got it in front of me.
Okay, so what are
Yeah,
the
no, I got it in
four
front of me. I mean,
points that he made?
yeah, sure. So what happened was you know, people responding to some of the people talking about you, because here's the thing we've noticed: it's not just the post liberals, but everybody adjacent to them. The whole sort of, some people call it the post liberal right, as a general term. It's the Nat Cons and the Claire Monsters and the what the people call themselves post liberals, and all of them tend to have this flirtation with Francisco Franco, which is weird. And some of them got mad at you for calling Franco a monster and a fascist, as you said. So I posted this thing online that said, I'll never understand the obsession with Franco, even ignoring the awful stuff between 1936 and 1943. In the years of poverty before the economic reforms of the late 50s, he was a dictator of a poor country. Can't the new right aim higher? Meanwhile, we live in the most successful country in world history. So I didn't expect that to cause too much uh, of a response. But yeah, I pretty much got ratioed, I guess, as the kids say. Um, Tweets of people defending.
It's not
Some
quite a
people backing
ratio.
me up, but other
It's
people just
close, but people are big
it's
mad.
close.
But
It's
yeah,
not a like to comment ratio,
yeah.
but one of the quote tweeters got like 1,300 likes.
Oh wow.
uh yeah, that was that piggy guy from France. Pascal Emmanuel Gobry. He got a 1,300 likes and 101 retweets responding to me negatively. Um it wasn't mean or anything. But his response was, okay, so easy. So he broke it down into five things. He said, easy. I wonder if I can share this screen with you. That'd probably be helpful, huh?
Oh sure, yeah. Let me
Let me share this. Let me just close this one out. All right, share the screen. I got Zoom, right? Share screen. Um, yes. Share. All right. My here's my screen. And so this is the Pascal Emmanuel Gabri. He says, one, the awful stuff wasn't awful at all. It was good. All right. Well, that's the big one that I gotta respond to. Two, the economic reforms did produce what was then called an economic miracle. That's true. Weird to count the autarky phase as the con column, but not count the development phase in the pro column. Okay. Yes. All right. I'll get back to that one later. And then 2A, Okay. Franco didn't make Spain poor. It had been poor for a century when he arrived. He did make it rich, relatively speaking, yes. If any other regime had that record, it would be hailed, taught in textbooks, etc. I gotta respond to that one. Um, those who know something about economic development might already be rolling their eyes a little bit, but it's like celebrating the people who stop hurting their country. Yes, that's okay. Yes, that is better. Um, three, birth rates. Okay, they love birth rates. They don't care about the killing part, but the birth rates. That's we'll get to that. Four, generally wholesome and beautiful culture. I agree. Spain is beautiful, wholesome culture. I like, and we'll talk about that. And then five, speaking for myself, I quite appreciate that he was a philo-Semite. But basically, it's two things: the aesthetics. He was a right winger who won. All right. Um, the philo-Semite thing. We'll get back to that one as well. But yeah, so the idea was that the awful stuff wasn't awful at all. It was good. What do you think about that, James? That was the awful stuff actually good?
Okay, so let's talk about the awful stuff. So here are the things that are the awful stuff that Pascal Emmanuel now says are good. So let's be clear that you were willing to bracket this out, and he decided to unbracket and affirm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is one thing that Franco did that we could consider good. All right, just in his
Yes.
general conduct, and that is that he defended the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Spanish Republicans, especially after the failed coup that
Yep.
Mola attempted
Mm-hmm.
with the army, enabled and mobilized many Spanish communists and
Yeah.
anarchists to
Mm-hmm.
begin the wholesale slaughter of Catholic priests and religious.
That's right.
And Franco wanted to stop that. And that is
That's right.
good. That is a good
Yes.
thing to want to stop.
Yep. And that was called the Red Terror, right?
It's called the Red Terror.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have exhausted what in the awful stuff we can call good. We did. We did it. All right. That's so,
Mm-hmm.
but often this is used to cover everything else.
Yes.
And it implicit in the he defended the Catholic Church, and so the other things he did were necessary. Implicit in that is all of the stuff that we've talked about in the book as typical of reactionary or fascist ideas, which is that establishes as the baseline the friend and enemy distinction as
Mm-hmm.
what holds for political justice or legitimate use of authority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was a friend and he killed the enemy, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore he was good. Now, this
Yeah.
definition of politics is incredibly low. It
Mm-hmm.
is also not Catholic. So,
Yeah.
if you are going to defend this position, what you are assuming is that all states exist in this same kind of failed way that Spain did by the time of the Republic. At that point, you had seen Alphonse the 13th just essentially resign from the throne.
Mm-hmm.
You had seen the rise, I think his name is Ansania, who was a very anti-clerical person in
That's
the
right.
National Republican. He lost
Mm-hmm.
his election. There's a guy named Leroux that came in, and it wasn't until uh, until Franco that they thought that they had a chance. Not Franco, I'm sorry about Mola. Franco was under Mola originally. Mola dies in a plane crash. That they think they have a chance that the Second Spanish Republic has so discredited itself that it can use the army to take over. Um, and so this is the basis of Franco's regime is essentially a failed coup that gets supported by outside powers and
Mm-hmm.
eventually overwhelms these other radicals. Now,
Yeah.
in pursuit of those things, what Franco does is something called the White Terror, in
Yes.
which 160 to 200,000 people die
Mm-hmm.
under his direction. Now, what makes this maybe good in the eyes of a lot of people who want to call this stuff good is that he did not kill Catholic priests and religious.
That's right.
And I'm glad that he didn't, although he
Hmm.
kind of did. He killed like 14 Spanish priests in Navarre because of Basque separatists there. So
Hmm.
the thing about his willingness to defend Catholics was that it was largely contingent on whether those Catholics were willing to defend him. And so the
Hmm.
friend enemy distinction here is very useful because it also explains his association with the Catholic Church, which is that he was willing to kill Catholics if they became his enemy. So
Hmm.
that's not a very good sort of defense of the Catholic
Yeah.
Church. This now puts the church very much in a position of enslavement
Hmm.
or some kind of occupation. And there were a lot of people within the Catholic Church at the time that were enthusiastic about Franco, but there were probably many who were maybe had more complicated ideas and they knew exactly what they were supposed to do, which was to shut the hell up. Now, the 200,000 people who die in the White Terror are mostly people that were socialists, liberals, Freemasons, Protestants, and communists. Now, I don't love communism. A lot of the communists that were killed may have been collaborators against Franco. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. And the thing is that they didn't know either. They didn't really care. They were just rounding people up and shooting them. And they
Yeah.
did this without any kind of due process. And again,
Hmm.
this kind of sort of approach to lawlessness, extremely not Catholic. And the response that we normally get from
Hmm.
this is, well, this is total war. You're just being idealistic. It's like, no, we don't get to change positions mid argument. Where it's like he was good, he was defending Catholics because Catholics, are the one true church. It's like, okay, so we're going with a high-minded idea here about the Catholic Church, and then when I adopt the same frame to criticize Franco, suddenly we have to switch to a low-minded, war is hell kind of thing. So, come on. All
Hmm.
right. This is clearly just um, a Mott Bailey defense of Franco, in which the only thing you're not allowed to argue is that Franco maybe did something wrong. And if that's where you are, then you're no
Yeah.
longer really arguing anything except that you like it when people kill people you perceive as your enemies. And at that point, you're
Yeah.
you're exactly what I said you were. You're a fascist monster. I win, right? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
so there's more awful stuff besides the White Terror. There
Hmm.
was the famine. So after
Hmm.
Franco finishes his defense of the nationalist position during the coup and eventually achieves total victory over the Spanish Republicans, he imposes something called autarky. Now, autarky is a form of radical corporatism in which the state demands that only internal production becomes possible in the country. So Spanish cheese required Spanish milk, Spanish bread required Spanish wheat, Spanish steel required Spanish iron, and there could be no importation of goods from anyone else. That would compromise the economic independence of Spain. And the reason for imposing something like this is to ensure that the state has total economic control over the well being of the people, which is the same as using the state police, which he also used in order to
Hmm.
impose total political control. He constantly engaged in extra legal political attacks on people perceived to be enemies, but it was also very hard for anyone to get the kind of economic independence they needed in order to have the time or the energy to oppose Franco. Now,
Hmm.
autarky is a complete disaster. And what we
Yeah.
call the Hunger Years in Spain, or the Hunger Years, I've seen it both ways,
Hmm.
um, also kills hundreds of thousands of Spaniards
Yeah.
in the form, and it severely limits the development, obviously, of other people. And the reason for this is that not only was Franco an autarkist, he also was like obsessed with agriculture. He
Hmm.
was trying to engage Spain in developing some of the least profitable and helpful elements of economic development. And this corresponds to his general sort of um, reactionary obsession with what he regarded as the true labor of manliness. Right? That's either farming or killing. Industrialization he regarded with suspicion, like many did, from that sort of ilk, from that sort of like, industrialization is what leads to the emancipation of minorities.
I just
But, go ahead.
want to share with you guys one thing real quick. Do you ever see this, James?
Oh, yeah.
Uh, Adrian Vermeule calling Franco Spain the good society. That's a pretty common sentiment. Not pretty common. It's almost ubiquitous among the post-liberals is that they
Mhm.
love Francisco Franco, just so that we can connect it with our larger um, theme of our show here.
Yeah. So what we're supposed to appreciate about Gray Connolly's post there is that it is good that these people were placed in without real um, guarantee of due process,
Hmm.
that they were forced into labor. And if you think this again, you cannot claim to be a serious Catholic intellectual or political philosopher, because this is a direct violation of natural justice over which Spain had complete ability to restore and
Yeah.
decided against.
Yeah,
Had no this. Go ahead.
Adrian Vermeule's downplayed due process and other times too. That's with the
Yeah.
some stuff with the immigration policy in the U.S. right now as well. So
Yeah, that's right. So it makes sense that they would want to defend Franco, but what doesn't make sense is that what they're defending is not monstrous fascism. All right,
mhm.
what they can just say that it's good, and that's what Pasquale Emmanuel does. Right, is he
Yeah.
says that the awful stuff wasn't awful; it was good. He likes fascist monsters,
Hmm.
and he likes them because what they do is fascist and what they do is monstrous. One
Yeah.
final thing, among the many things that you can talk about during the awful period, is the forcible removal of children from families that Franco did.
Mhm.
And there is a really insane, like haunting account of this by a guy named Peter Anderson done at the British Academy called Spain's Lost Children. Um, I'll just read this part right here towards the beginning. During and after the Civil War of 1936 to 1939, the victorious Francoists removed such children from a wide array of opponents, from political prisoners housed in special nursing prisons, from parents imprisoned or executed and unable to care for their offspring, from parents who had fled into exile to avoid retribution that claimed at least 130,000 lives, and from mothers and fathers impoverished by political discrimination. The concerted effort to forestall the creation of a documentary record and continued closure of important archives mean that historians do not know the exact number removed from the broad array of red parents. We know that in 1943, 12,042 children of General Franco's political prisoners were living in a regime care homes, but some scholars speak of over 30,000 children passing into Francoist care homes. A good number of these children went into adoption with families loyal to the regime, where they were given new identities. Vicente Flores Ruiz's father, for instance, was executed at the end of the war in Valencia, and she was adopted by 4 different families, in each of which she took a new name and endured the shame of hailing from a red family. In recent years, the lost children of Francoism have taken center stage in a huge scandal on the removal of children from political enemies. So this is great for Pascal. He thinks this is good. He thinks it's good that what you do is you orphan children by killing their parents after the end of the war, and then you make them experience shame growing up for coming from such parents while changing their names and sending them about the country. So I think that's an important thing to understand, is that when we say Franco was a fascist monster, what he wants to say is, yes, he was. It was good that tens of thousands of children experienced that, and that this is the thing that he's going to say redeems Franco in the eyes of many people. This is what he calls generally wholesome and beautiful culture. Generally wholesome and beautiful culture is the use of secret police to kill potential threats and enemies, the starvation of families all across Spain, and the kidnapping of children of who people they perceive as regime enemies. And to cover all of this wholesale totalitarian violence, is that he defended the Catholic Church. And again, good that he defended the Catholic Church. I'm not sure if it's good enough of an defense, given the wholesale rate at which he violated everything the Catholic Church teaches on issues of personhood. But here we are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do, in his defense, there's a few things he says there that make me think he just doesn't know what he's talking about. Like he's heard this all from Franco stands, and he hasn't really researched it very much. But
Then why weigh
like for
in?
instance, when he
Like
calls,
he doesn't know what he's talking
yeah,
about,
I
then maybe
know.
he should stop talking.
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing he says about well, I'll get to it when he says that Franco was a Semite.
No, he
Um,
wasn't.
that's just not really a defensible claim.
There's like multiple volumes about how anti-Semitic the man was. I had to cut back that part of the chapter
Yeah.
because it was kind of crushing with the whole section on Franco that we had to write. Anyway,
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, if I deleted a tweet because I remember reading that a Paul Preston book on the what was the name of that book?
the Spanish
The
Holocaust,
one on the what's that?
the Spanish Holocaust.
No, the other one about like the Judeo-Masonic conspiracy. Let's see, Paul Preston, Franco book. Architects of
Yeah,
Terror.
Architects of Terror. I just found it.
It's Paranoia, Conspiracy, and Anti-Semitism in Franco's Spain. I said that there was a whole government department dedicated to resisting the Judeo-Masonic conspiracy, but I think it was just an office. There was an office for the
It's a bureau.
Judeo-Masonic.
Yeah,
What's that?
I said it was a bureau within a broader bureaucratic structure. It
Yeah,
still
exactly.
existed, and that's
Yeah,
nuts.
which is nuts. Yes, and they the Franco propaganda during the Civil War. It is true that there was an international conspiracy insofar as Moscow was um supporting the Republicans in the war in the Civil War. But they made it about like international Jewry and stuff. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
what the Franco propaganda was about. So I mean, there even though there were the Jews had been expelled from Spain a long time before this, and there weren't that many of them there. He very much participated in that Judeo-Masonic Bolshevist conspiracy theory that those were the people behind their enemies, and I think he believed it. I mean, a lot of people did back then.
Yeah, The Architects of Terror is an incredible book, and it's a funny book too because the one of the major motivations for Franco to engage in the White Terror is that he was a true believer in this stuff. He
Hmm.
really did believe in particular ideas that came from a particular priest in there. I'll look up in a second. I don't have the book in front of me,
Hmm.
but the it only occurred after he had lost his effort to get into the Masonic Lodge twice. And the
Yeah.
reason why he wanted to join the lodge was he believed that it was good for his military career. So
Hmm.
he didn't care early on about the Catholic Church and its position on joining the lodge. What he cared about was getting ahead. And
Hmm.
when he discovered that he was basically blackballed because of his own brother who didn't want him in the lodge, he
Hmm.
flips the other direction and begins to read a bunch of this crazy stuff that's sent to him by members of his family. And he has time to do it because he's so bad that people don't want him to have a major commission in the military. So he's got nothing to do. He just sits around for a year and reads basically the equivalent of I don't know, like of 4chan. Like it's just like
Hmm.
this sort of crappy fascist and Nazi subsidized material that's designed to kind of lure in like-minded people. And this
Hmm.
is all discussed in the first chapter of the Architects of Terror. Um, they're these chief writers of this kind of stuff that he reads, and then it becomes it. I just cannot wrap my brain around being this awful, but like it just becomes the template for how he governs the country until
Yeah.
by the 1950s things have gotten so bad that he has to relent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Cranky Federalist online. I don't know his real name, but that's his online persona. He's a very funny guy, one of the better people to follow on the website. Um, but he's I think he teaches like middle school history, so he reads a lot of history. And he read the Preston's book on the Spanish Holocaust. I still haven't read it. I had just ordered it. You've read it before?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was telling me these things from it that were just wild. Like, 7 years after the Civil War, I can't remember how many years after it that Franco instituted a post facto law about Republicans, people who had supported the Republicans, and then just still started targeting them finding the ones who had supported the Republic before to arrest them and stuff. And this is like,
There's tons of stories like that.
yeah.
And you get tired of reading them. I'll
Hmm.
be honest. But I'm just trying to find the name. I'm trying to find like the name of this one priest um, that was so bad. And it sort of points to the reason why, like, as much as we can say it was good that he defended I just can't find it. I'm gonna lose my mind trying to get through all this. Um, uh, if you can't tell, like all of my stuff is in boxes all around me, so I can't pull
Hmm.
it off the shelf and look this up very very easily. But yeah, so a lot of this stuff had emerged from reactionary Catholic figures,
Hmm.
and so when we talk about defending the Catholic Church in Spain, often we're defending a kind of deranged group of people. Not always, and certainly many of these people were just innocent, faithful Catholics. But members of the Catholic Church are complicit in this sort of thing,
Hmm.
and they should not have been.
Yeah.
Another thing that is part of the awful stuff here is the subjugation of the Catholic Church to the political will of a man who's willing to kill six figures of people he regards as his political enemies to the point where he tracks them down afterwards, as we were just
Yeah.
saying, to have them exterminated.
Yeah.
This is generally wholesome and beautiful if you're
Yeah.
Pascal.
Yeah.
I'm astonished that he is so intellectually uncurious. He wouldn't think maybe to pause and read serious work on the subject. I mean, some people pointed out that he may be sort of on the take from a French right wing billionaire to do a lot of this stuff, a guy named Pierre Edouard Sterin. And so it
Oh,
might
are
be
they connected?
yeah, I don't know. I can't say for certain. I
Yeah.
know someone we both know has asserted that this must be what's the case.
Yeah.
Um, so it could be that he's paid not to be curious,
Hmm.
because it's important to note that Pascal was not always like this.
Yeah.
This really emerged like around 2018 or 2019. He used to be at the Ethics and Public Policy Center.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what's happened to this
Wow.
guy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he worked where George Weigel is now.
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's
Yeah, no,
I
I had
watched
no
this
idea.
happen over the years because uh, uh, I've been doing this a long time.
Hmm. Yeah, uh so it's kind of beside the point, but this is kind of a pet peeve for me because I'm trying to as somebody, I'm very curious about this. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. And you read Paul Preston, and Paul Preston's really a very good historian, but he has a sort of sympathy. I think he's a little bit more sympathetic with the Spanish left than I am, right? So sometimes I kind of, when you're reading Preston, you're like, you may be being a little bit too easy on them, right? Um, but I mean, some valuable things you learn about the situation is normally when Franco is defended on the right. And it's unfortunately too common of a thing, even among normies. Um, it normally starts at that point where the Civil War has already been going on. You've already had the Red Terror, right? Um, but if
Right.
you rewind to right after the 1936 election, where the left coalition of called the Popular Front wins the election and it wins more seats in the parliament. Um, it's not clear to me that they needed a they were justified in attempting a coup and getting the Civil War started, right? Um, the Most of us we think because of the Red Terror, we tend to think that they were the communists were running the show. But really, like the communists at that point in 1936 only had 17 seats in the parliament out of 473. And the socialists had 99 seats. So there was like a lot of just like center left Republicans that were in that coalition, right? Of the Popular Front. Now it was pretty anti-clerical. It was bad. Don't get me wrong.
They wanted to seize control of church finances
Yeah,
and
it
deny
was,
the ability for churches to, conduct themselves as they historically had. Bad,
yes,
real
it
bad.
was bad, real bad. But was it
the
start a civil war bad or wait till the next election bad? And I'm inclined to think it was wait till the next election bad. Um,
the Civil War, how many children are you allowed under Catholic doctrine to forcibly kidnap and redistribute across the country in order to save the ability for the church to control, I don't know, curriculum in the state? That's my
yeah, no,
question.
it's yeah. And here's the
Because
thing
the
too.
answer apparently is as many as it takes for Pascal
Yeah.
Emmanuel Gobry. That's what he wants.
Well, if you look back, I mean, it's a similar thing to what we saw in the case of the French, that the it was this vicious cycle between the anti-clerical left and the anti-republican right. If if the right could have just been a little bit less anti-republican, they would have had a ruling coalition which wasn't anti-clerical. But they didn't get that. They scared the heck out of the center left, right? Because at that time in the 30s, in 1936, they were the center left, the reasonable left was like afraid of fascism. That's so they joined with the radicals on the left. Those same people would have been, if you would have had a Mitt Romney right on this in Spain at the time, they would have joined with them, right? I mean, it was not it wouldn't have been Mitt Romney, but you know what I'm saying? Like if they just would have been less radical, anti-Republican, you could have had a ruling coalition that wasn't anti-clerical.
Yeah, and this is what really confuses me about him describing a wholesome and beautiful culture in Spain.
Yeah.
Because the truth is that the political culture in Spain could not have been worse. And the reason for
Terrible.
the political radicalization you're describing, the polarization, is because Spain was a ruin. It was a broke, struggling failure. That's all it could be at best, right? Like at one point, they actually, like when they're still trying to have a monarchy, they invite an Italian prince over to become king, and he just bails after a few
Hmm.
years. He gets shot at a bunch of times. We talk about
Hmm.
it briefly in the book, and he just goes home.
Yeah.
He just gets on a plane with his wife and leaves
Hmm.
because Spain was an ungovernable pile of garbage. And I don't. I hope. I mean, I'm sure this is not going to make like Spanish listeners or whoever many way happy. But look, um, it was not great.
Hmm.
And the thing about the political culture is that it reflected as much. Spain had a history of empire and autocratic rule, it got more or less dissolved over time. First of all, by the Habsburgs inbreeding to the point where they could no longer conceive heirs. So this leads to the War of Spanish Succession. And then after that, like they experience pretty significant losses during a couple campaigns during the Napoleonic Wars.
Hmm.
The Napoleonic influence on Spain makes it so that you can no longer have autocratic rule, but the exact nature of Republican rule as an alternative is highly influenced by the autocracy from before. So
Yeah,
Republicans still think like autocrats. They
that's right.
they think that they can do with the state what monarchists did.
That's
And the
right.
truth is that they couldn't do it either. And this is a problem of civic virtue. If you're a
Hmm.
Republican, you imagine the state to operate as if you were kind of a corporate king. So they're more like Hobbesian in their
Hmm.
conceptions of power. And so you have this um, anti clerical urge where, like, the reason that the church is considered so bad is that they have to explain why they are failing
Hmm.
So the idea of the church as the enemy of free people is essentially the mirror image of the Judeo-Masonic conspiracy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, like, this is why it happens. And the whole idea of there being some external cause that is otherwise frustrating this ideal circumstance is an indication of how little these people understood what they were doing.
Yeah.
They did not know how to govern. They knew how to govern badly and then blame it on enemies. And that's why
Yeah.
the friend enemy distinction is such a low concept of the political, because it
Hmm.
depends on not really knowing how to do what you're supposed to be doing, but rather figuring out ways to cover for your own failure by creating a consensus figure for blame.
Yeah, no, I think when we think of it as the reason we bring this up is not because we want to just we care that much about tearing down historical Francisco Franco, whatever, um, you know, or but it's more because of what the lesson that these people are trying to draw from Franco, and as if like this is the model. You had all these articles like we need a Protestant Franco, we need a new Franco. It's just the same thing as that whole we need a new Caesar, we need a red Caesar, we need a blue Caesar. Caesarism, right? I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, we use it. They say the lesson was they always tell you, and it's like a slogan. They say there's been no way to stop the radical left other than by adopting force. So they say Franco knew what he had to do, and he didn't. But he didn't, though.
He
They
wasn't
did.
even the first choice. He
Yeah.
only becomes the
No.
leader of the nationalists after two other generals die.
Yeah. No. The lesson you should get from these reactionaries is, react a little smarter, and you guys can save a lot of lives, and you have a decent functioning society. Like they should not have. I mean, these were not. That's not the lesson you should take from it. What you should take from it is like what we've seen in the case of France and Spain is that if you go woke right, you're going to push away the reasonable left, and then you're either going to have the radicals on one side or the other ruling, but not the people that are reasonable. So
So, was Franco responsible for economic reforms that we should consider an economic miracle?
yeah, well, there
Weird to
it was
count
the
the
Spanish
autarky phase in the con
yeah,
column,
yeah,
huh?
yeah. This is the Spanish economic miracle was a real thing, but what it was the economy, like you said, the economy that Franco imposed was one of corporatism and autarky. And corporatism was popular in all the right-wing authoritarian governments in the 1930s, with Portugal and Italy, and it was actually one of the key facets of fascism. If you read Mussolini's own writings on fascism, it was a key facet of it. And it actually though came out of a Catholic context. It was actually in the late 19th century, sort of the reactionary Catholic thinkers who were nostalgic for the old guild system. You see a similar thing with the distributism over with Hilaire Belloc and G.K. Chesterton. They both of the corporatists in them had this sort of nostalgia for the guild system. And they don't realize that the guild system was just actually, nowadays economic historians can go back and they tell you that the guild system just wasn't very good. I
It
mean, it
was
was
just
just,
cartels.
yeah, it was just cartels, right? And it was
Yeah.
like people, they were acting in their self-interest, and they're limiting competition, limiting entry to the industry. So, I mean, actually, some of the worst things in our economy today are the most like guilds. Like, I mean, we talk about how expensive universities are. Well, universities are most like systems, like most like a guild system, with because they impose the what do you call it? Credentialism, or what's it called? What's this?
Meritocracy?
No, what's the thing that universities impose? The system, the credential thing. You have to get
Credentialism?
you have to get you have to get past these. They have these like sort of reviews in order
Got
it's sort
nothing.
of
No idea.
for your university to qualify as a they have to what's that called? Anyways, but it's similar. I mean, you also have like the American medical schools. They colluded together to limit admissions, and then
Accreditation?
accreditation. That's what I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
thinking.
yeah, yeah.
Accreditation is part of. It's kind of like the guild. That's like the guild system. Um, you have the medical schools colluded to limit admissions in the 1980s, and that's led to higher healthcare costs for everybody because there are fewer doctors. You have to pay them more. These are the kind of things that guilds would do. Um, so they corporatism was the idea of institutionalizing that within the government so that you would each of the industries would be represented in government. And that's what they would do. They would use their government power to limit competition and all that stuff. So, and it goes together with just the general anti-competition mentality of the reactionary right in the 19th century. Um, Competition was seen as something ugly and bad, that you don't want competition, you want cooperation. But really, that just what it ends up becoming is just like controlling other people and controlling, limiting other people's freedom. And it makes us all poorer, right? But the corporatism part of it wasn't even as damaging. It was pretty bad, but it wasn't even as damaging as combining corporatism with autarky, which doesn't even allow the foreign competition, so that people you can buy from people in other countries if they want to. Um,
Spain is just not capable of producing certain things.
yeah, no
And
country is.
yeah, this is the old problem of competitive advantage
Hmm.
for corporatists, which is that there's not a nation that simply possesses all of the resources and labor that's necessary in order to produce things at the most efficient price level. And a big reason for that is because foreign trade creates competition that actually lowers price level and makes the domestic production more efficient if left to its own devices, because now
Yep.
that with the foreign competition, they have to figure out ways of competing for price.
Yeah.
This is why the Spanish miracle actually occurs, is because they
Mhm.
dump autarky and corporatism. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
he's
or they
making
at least
our
weaken it.
argument
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's right. So he gets credit then for pulling away his bad economic policies. I mean, and he was actually advised on this by some Opus Dei advisors.
This is
They
literally called liberalization, as in the
yeah,
liberalism that failed.
yeah,
So
no,
he's
no,
now
that's right.
trying to
That's
credit Franco with
yeah,
liberalism's success.
yeah, no, I know. It's like crediting China for liberalizing their economy, moderately, and
Yeah,
then they get this
communism
economic
works
growth
because
from
you
just
stop being communist.
not strangling it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but
Yeah.
this is especially ridiculous
Yeah.
because it's not for lack of trying, right? That the corporatism and autarky produced widespread human suffering. And the
Yeah.
economic miracle for Pascal is uh, to stop the suffering by stopping the insane policies, part of which were motivated by just having economic control over the population.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was all happening at the same time as the rest of Western Europe becoming richer too, because they were all liberalizing after the war. So you're trading with a bunch of countries that are getting richer, so you're going to get richer too. Um, that's what we see happen. In the last 30 years, the rate of extreme poverty has gone from like 30% of the world to 10%, as trade's been liberalized between different countries, and so poorer countries have more access to the goods that are produced by richer countries, and so forth, so they can enter into the world market.
So
So yeah,
we have Pascal wants to defend child kidnapping, the White Terror, and what is the widespread famine. He also wants to defend the liberalization of trade, which seems weird to want both of those things because they're directly contrary to each other. Franco didn't make Spain poor. This is true. He helped keep it poor. And it had been poor for a century when he arrived. This is also true. He did make it rich. Easy there, buddy. Right? Like by simply handing over the regime economic policy to these people from Opus Dei, he was essentially relenting on his own policy that had made Spain poorer. So it's
yeah,
hard to give him credit for giving up on a failed project,
yeah,
right? That's and
yeah,
then the successful project wasn't his.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
No,
just not
honestly, the
true.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think the best thing that he did, besides, pivoting away from his bad policy there, um, was he when he handed over the reins to what was it? Who was the king he handed over the reins to? Is it Juan Carlos?
Hmm. Yeah.
He handed over somebody who allowed for democracy to happen
It
afterwards.
completely cleared out all of Francoism. And what's funny is like, in order to do that, he's like, oh sure, we'll preserve Francoist policies. And then as soon as he's in charge, he's just
Hmm.
clearing it out. It's just
Yeah,
absolutely not, get this out of here.
yeah,
And a lot of credit goes to him. I mean, he's a
mhm.
really incredible guy
Yeah, yeah.
for
Good for
doing
him.
all
It's
that.
like
I don't like
Cincinnatus there.
kings. He can,
Yeah,
he's Mr. Carlos to me, but
yeah,
whatever
Mr.
the hell.
Carlos. That's funny. Yeah, no,
So,
I
so
think sorry,
no, birth rates.
birth rates.
Birth rates. Number three, birth rates.
Yeah, his reign coincided with the baby boom of the West.
This is a classic case of statistical fraud
Yeah.
that is undergraduate at best,
Hmm.
right? So let's
Yep.
say you have one case in which birth rates go up,
Yep.
and you want to say that this country did something internally
Hmm.
to increase birth rates.
Yep.
And the first thing you need to do is you need to say, well, was this the case for other countries? And the answer is yes. All countries after the Second World War experienced increase in birth rates.
Yep.
None of them, except for Spain, had Franco as a dictator. In fact, in many places where Franco was not a dictator, the birth rates were higher, and that's because fewer children died from starvation. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, oh
Yeah.
God. I
No, it just
I
doesn't it doesn't it doesn't really make any sense. And then the other thing he said, I think he was getting at, I think his main point, he gives way to the way end because he's clearly wrong about the philo-Semitism thing. Basically, you can't give Franco credit for not being a Nazi. Uh,
Yeah. I
yeah, I mean
mean,
that's one of the things that people
Charles
get mad at
Manson
us
wasn't
for.
a Nazi. Or
Yeah.
wait, that's actually a bad example. David Koresh wasn't a Nazi. Stalin was definitely not a Nazi. Pol
Yeah.
Pot, really not a Nazi. There are a lot of really
Yeah.
bad people who are not Nazis.
Yeah, that's right. And I think so yeah, so to Franco's credit, he did allow 20,000 Jews to travel through Spain to get out of Europe. Okay. So he didn't kill those Jews or hand them over to the
Or
Nazis.
take their kids or starve
Or
them to
take,
death.
yeah, you get partial credit for that, Franco, for not being a Nazi. Congratulations.
Yeah. I don't understand why that's supposed to give him credit for anything. And
Yeah.
uh a lot of this stuff is like old um Franco propaganda.
Yeah.
Like I had one guy that literally shared with me in order to refute the idea that he wasn't like a saint. Like this guy really thought that he was a saint. First of all,
Yeah.
there was like an award given by the Vatican to him because he agreed to a concordat that was
Hmm.
very amenable to what the Vatican wanted. And it was
Hmm.
very clearly like a quid pro quo. And I'm like
Yeah.
utterly unimpressed by this. And I was like, well, where's the cause for canonization? And then like people had like this weird AI made image of Franco with angelic wings. It's like, it's not really how canonization works. But the thing is that there's not a cause for canonization, and it's because the public record of Franco's wholesale human violence is so egregious and well understood that only people that only care about this kind of propaganda would defend it.
Yeah.
And so I was getting this it's like this defense of Franco from one person was the cover of Social Justice from Father Charles Coughlin, right? Like, and it's like Coughlin was operated the Christian Front, which was a fascist front organization meant to essentially compromise, especially like Irish and German Catholics in the Midwest.
Yeah.
The man was despicable.
Yeah, no, he was like working with the Nazis. He
Yeah,
was
he had unregistered foreign agents, and he published English translations of Nazi speeches in his magazine, and the
Hmm.
people who wanted to get him off the air the fastest were the Catholic bishops in the
Yep.
United States. But he was protected by some like-minded Catholic bishop out of the Diocese of Detroit. And
Yep.
so he said, and this what got Coughlin pulled off the air finally was after Pearl Harbor. He said that Pearl Harbor was the result of the Jews, which is hilarious. All of these Jews in Japan, right?
Yeah.
The Jews well known for their anyway for their ascendance in the military ranks of the Japanese Empire. And
Yes.
At that point, he got yanked off the air. And you had people like, Venerable Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen, who were actually ministering sanity, right? Like, it's like, no, we don't have to say this about the Jews, elder brothers in the faith. We wish for them, to, become Catholic, but we don't want them to be forcibly converted, like they were in Croatia, or sent to concentration camps. Because God made each of us in His image, and therefore we each have, personhood. As if this is all very basic stuff.
So I think what Peg is left with is um the aesthetics.
Yeah,
I
which
mean,
was all propaganda, and that's what it was intended to do. It was intended to cover for all the nonsense.
I know another group that actually had Hugo Boss design their outfits.
They look
So I mean,
good,
like, what?
man.
How far should aesthetics go?
Hugo Boss did such a good job that he basically created an entire sort of aesthetic for all villains ever after, right?
Yeah,
Like knee-high cavalry boots and shining black. Boom,
yeah,
right? It's in Star Wars, it's in everything,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's hard. Yeah, I mean,
But it is just aesthetics. And that's part of what was so funny to me is that a lot of the arguments we were getting from sort of like reply guys, these are like,
mm,
people that are online and are really into Franco, but they're anonymous, they're not public. They're just on
mhm,
Twitter. They're probably, not very old. Is that
mhm.
a lot of them liked to post those kinds of pictures, like the one from Social Justice, this one of like Franco with angel wings. These aren't arguments. You're right. You're right. Like it's more of like a feeling, right?
Yeah,
It's in a feeling that there was this lost past, and I've talked about this before, and I wrote about it in an article I wrote called "After Republican Virtue," which is this imagined past that's been taken from you, right? This is like a return to tradition. We were never asked. This is what they took from you. This sort of
hmm,
idea that you would be much happier now had this nefarious group, the Judeo-Masonic, whatever, had not taken it from you, and now you're unhappy because of them.
yeah,
And so Franco is an imagined past in which they imagine themselves to belong to some kind of integrated political and religious order in which they would never experience any kind of problems. And this is extremely anti-Christian,
yeah,
right? This put your faith in princes, all right?
yeah,
Be sufficient with the what the world provides.
yeah,
Like this could not be less scriptural.
yeah. Do
And
you
yeah,
saw this? Somebody was posting. People, we've convinced a few people, I think, on Twitter. There are a few people that used to that looked into Franco a little more because of us, and they were backing us up on Twitter. So I was happy about that. But one of the thing posts that somebody put up was the religious church attendance percentages throughout the West compared to U.S. states. If
Spain's
you
at the
ever look at,
bottom.
yeah, Spain was lower than 49 states. It was
I
only
think
higher than
only
Vermont.
Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, America's church attendance is just crazy high. Like it's like American states and then like two other European countries in the middle of it and then like the Europe. And yet, we live in this great country and the people like to imagine that things would be better and during the White Terror, I guess. I don't know.
Until Spain can reckon with the legacy of Franco, that
Hmm.
church attendance will tap out at
Yeah.
25 unless they
Yeah.
import like a huge number of Catholics from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because being a devout Catholic in Spain is at the same time also implicitly throwing in with Franco for many people. Is that
Yeah.
fair? Not really.
Hmm.
But that's Franco's fault. So that's the
Yeah.
thing I kept telling people in a lot of these replies is that you think because he was willing to defend the material interests of the church that he was
Yeah.
a friend of the church. But the difference between the Republicans and Franco was that the Republicans were making martyrs of the faith. Now, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that those people deserve to die or that it was good that they died, but rather that they cannot control the ultimate result of these people and their faith in Christ.
Yeah.
What Franco did was worse because what
Hmm.
he did is he made cowards out of the clergy. He
Yeah.
denies them that by making them submit to him, right? Like
Yeah.
the second temptation.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think okay, so let's close out here on one final question. Is Franco a fascist?
So my response was someone pointed out that he rounded up members of the Phalange, which was
Yeah.
like the fascist party, and that this was an indication that he could not have been a fascist.
Yeah, because the Flange were like more like pure Mussolini type
Yeah,
fascists.
he also made himself the head of the Phalange.
That's right.
So, I did it. He's a fascist, but
Fascists are very loyal to each other, James.
yeah. The point is that like the fact that he was willing to seize control of the fascist party unilaterally and then
Using
to
violence? Did he use
using
violence to
using violence is the most fascist thing that I can think of. Right.
Yeah.
But the idea is that like he wasn't a member of Mussolini's fascist party, which of course he wasn't because he's not Italian.
Yeah.
And that he had like reservations about some of the positions that black shirts take. This is all ideological stuff, right? This is no
Yeah.
true fascist. This is an attempt to create a kind of ideological criteria, and that's not the definition of fascism we use in the book.
Yeah.
The definition of fascism we use in the book is from Robert Paxton, and the thing is that fascism is not really a coherent ideology. It's a
Yeah.
series of decisions that a would-be authoritarian make.
Yeah.
And so those decisions he does. He makes those decisions. He uses a police state, denies people the ability to vote, creates a cult, a kind of divine cult of the leader, and he governs by the friend and enemy distinction. This is, and
Yeah.
so
And he
it's.
also imposes a corporatist economic system, which is also very common
I mean,
among
he
the.
checks all the boxes, and
Yeah.
so the only people that are quivering about calling him a fascist are the people who never got the memo that uh, actually on the new right being a fascist is good now. So they feel like they have to defend him from this charge, even though most people who are like their comrades in arms in these debates actually like the fact that he was a fascist.
Yeah.
And so you don't have so because for a long time the way that you would defend Franco before all this was you would say that actually he was just defending the Catholic Church from the communists, and the communists are the totalitarians, and because he was a Catholic, he couldn't be a totalitarian himself. And he made some very bad economic decisions, but he was willing to unwind those. This is essentially what Pascal argues, right? This very
Yeah.
naive, primarily propagandistically informed approach to Franco, and so that's kind of the old style defense of Franco that you would get from people like the authors of Triumph magazine, right?
Yeah.
Wilhelmsen um, uh, or the like. So the trouble with the argument is that it doesn't matter what you think the ideological criteria are or the kind of regional or ethnic criteria are for fascism. Robert Paxton's definition checks all the boxes. He may even disagree. I don't care. We at least make the case, and a lot
Yeah.
of people, a lot of people want to narrow fascism down to include cases they like, and then expand it to or narrow it to the ones they don't like and expand it to include ones they like. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Well,
Broadly
yeah.
speaking, he adopted the same fascist means and ends
Yeah,
as
that's
other
right.
authoritarians in the area that called themselves fascist.
Yeah. I mean, Umberto Eco has a famous article essay about this from the 90s. And
Oh, that midwit.
yeah. Yeah, has anyone that sees a Google an image of his personal library? This guy. I mean, I don't agree with Umberto Eco about everything. He was a atheist, I think, and I disagree with that. And but I would never think to call him a midwit. It's like calling Richard Feynman an idiot. That's just stupid. You don't
Yeah.
do that. But yeah, no, I but anyways, yeah, he has this essay where it's a similar thing. He said, some people who want to defend fascists normally will limit it to the definition of Mussolini in that famous work he co-authored with what's that guy's name, the philosopher Gentile.
Gentile.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and it's like, no, it's taken on its own meaning over time, and but it's kind of like liberalism where there's no like absolute common definition that applies to everyone. It's more like a family resemblance thing where you get like four or five of these things here, and then the four or five of these things here, and then they're all similar looking, uh, but they don't necessarily A and B over here. These two instances don't necessarily share anything in common, but they share in common with C. And you mentioned some of those features. Those are the common features, like the features that you find as the things that you see in the things that were called fascists. And I think that's fair too, because there's a close relationship with a lot of these groups that are associated with fascism. Even before Mussolini, the Action Française was considered a proto-fascist group, and they were just as influential or more than even Mussolini's. No, not more, but they were the two big influences of like the early 20th century, what we call fascism in a general sense, or Action Française, and then Mussolini. But Mussolini, we one thing that this project has taught us is that he was a big deal in the 1930s. All of these authoritarians around the whole world were copying him and taking notes, right?
If this sounds dumb to some people that are listening, understand that this is not area expertise for either of us originally.
Yeah.
And so Mussolini in popular presentation is the junior partner who can't quite handle his role in the Second World War.
Hmm.
Um, but we had to be reminded in an important way of the 10 years before the war in which Mussolini is regarded as the sort of future of politics on the continent.
Yeah.
And a big one that was important to a lot of Catholics was his concordat with the Vatican.
Yeah.
And this is what opens the floodgates for this kind of clerical fascism you get in Spain and other parts of the
Right.
world that we talk about in the book. Because if Mussolini, not a Catholic, or really even friendly to religion generally, can reach this conclusion, then you can essentially Catholicize what Mussolini is doing. And Franco is the person who does it first
Hmm.
and then produces tremendous number of imitators.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess you could say that Salazar kind of does it first, but the reason
Hmm.
why Franco is so important is because of the war. Like
Yeah.
Salazar does it, and it's really occurring within a pretty confined political context, and also in a smaller country that just people care less about. But the other reason why it was so important that it occurred in Spain is because people may not agree that Franco was a fascist, but one person who genuinely thought that he was enough of a fascist to be a friend was Adolf Hitler, right? Like
Yeah.
Hitler, wanted to form a rapprochement with Spain. Franco
Hmm.
wanted that too.
Yeah.
Um,
They were
they
hoping to get some territory if they joined in. They're
That's
like,
right.
yeah.
Franco signs the tripartite pact. They do not publicize this. This often, as a result, does not get mentioned in a lot of the apologia for Franco. But he was a secret signer to the tripartite pact, and a big reason he did this was so that he could make claims to territory after the war was over. He wanted a lot of North Africa. And he wanted to essentially prevent Vichy from getting any of what they thought as their own claims, since Vichy was already more or less, on board with what was going on here because they both had a gun to their head and because they had a very willing partner in Petain, which we've already talked
Yeah,
about.
that's
Um,
right.
so, the thing is that Spain was such a basket case, they couldn't really help Hitler. And so Hitler thought Franco was holding out on him, and Franco was trying to get something for nothing. And the one thing Franco was never willing to compromise on, really the only thing, was himself.
Hmm.
So he thought that if he would make a bet on Hitler, which was a good bet at the time,
Hmm.
in 41, then he needed to have very favorable odds, very favorable returns, and Hitler wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah.
If it's a very good bet, then you get very little in return for making it. Right. This is how odds work.
Yeah.
So eventually you end up with not much help either way. He won't
Yeah.
get Gibraltar for Hitler, and Hitler won't promise him any territory. But they still engaged in significant amounts of trading, and volunteers were sent to the Eastern Front, where they were all killed,
Yeah.
from what I understand. So they were very friendly with each other until Franco started to take sort of like slow backward steps away from Hitler in 43 and acted
Yeah,
like
which
nothing
he
had ever
wasn't a
happened.
come to Jesus moment. It was realizing that the Allied powers were going to win and they didn't want to be punished for that.
Exactly zero people on the Allied side were fooled by this.
Yeah.
Originally, the plan was to replace Franco. And what they figure out is that there's no one to replace him with that's any better.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that the likelihood of Spain collapsing into another civil war upon his replacement was pretty significant, especially given the Soviet Union's role in the previous one. And so the hope was that he would just die.
Yeah.
And then he didn't for decades.
Yeah, for 29 years.
But you know who did? Lots of
Hitler.
Spaniards.
Oh, yes.
Because
Yeah.
of Franco,
Yeah.
which is generally wholesome and beautiful culture. Just the unforced death of people from starvation and kidnapping and extra legal murder and
So
mass
James, I'm
graves.
I'm going to be cynical here. They say that some scholars don't like the term clerical fascist or they like to restrict fascism to whatever. I'm going to be cynical here. I think it's just generally people who kind of like some of these fascists and they don't like the stink from the word fascist because they think of Hitler. So they want to say that no, 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 fascism is only X, the thing I don't like over here. But we don't call this thing over this authoritarianism over here. I like fascism, right? I'm going to be cynical. I think that's what's going on.
No, look, man, like when I wrote After Republican Virtue, Nathan Raposki wrote an article called How Not to Argue Against the Integralists. And
Hmm.
that's essentially what it was an attempt to confine a lot of what I've said to a very small number of people who don't qualify. And this is supposed to enable his ability to appeal to them as serious and credible figures, right?
Hmm.
And, um, I ate his lunch, right? Like I'll be
Yeah,
on, like first of all, like the number of qualifying cases that he introduces don't even exhaust the simple list I provided, which is now an
yeah,
expanded list that's in the book.
yeah,
But also he has arbitrary ideological criteria for what these things are, and it's always
yeah,
a no true Scotsman argument,
yeah,
right? It's always no true fascist would X. And it's
yeah,
like, who are you trying to convince, me or you? All right. Because it
yeah.
seems like what you want is to believe that villains can be heroes too. And you know what? That's a problem for you and your therapist or your priest. Like I don't need to be a
Ja-
partner to this.
I recommend the listener to read James's articles that he just mentioned on Law and Liberty. They're really good.
Was a straw man and a Scotsman walk into the Cafe de Flore? Is
Can't
the
remember.
response to Pekoski?
You had
Um,
that line in there, which is one of the best lines I've read recently in anything, where you said, "It was bad that you used a straw man. It was worse that you lost."
Yeah, it's bad enough that you attacked a straw man. It's worse that you lost.
Yeah. It's like that's amazing.
That's
Yeah.
a reference to the fact that,
Good essay writing is just um underrated, it's just
yeah, the thing about the Pekoski tack is that it's asking us not to pay attention to what's going on around us. Right?
hmm
It's like, no, no, no. These people, we need to define fascism narrowly, or you're a communist, which was basically his argument to me. And then it's like, well, so that's not how to argue against integralists, is to point out how they affiliated with fascists. Let's check on what the contemporary Catholic integralists are associating with, and it's fascists. And it's
Yeah.
like, so the problem that I'm pointing out in that paragraph is that they're the ones celebrating Dolphus and Vichy and Salazar and Franco. And so he's not addressing the right people. He
Yeah.
should be addressing them, saying, oh, no, 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 you can't do integralism and be fascist. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, well, they think so.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't know Pinkowski, but it was he he gets into a little bit of sophistry when he gets into some of the stuff because
He's not
he had
fooling anyone.
the he had the claim that Marat supported Vichy, yes, but it wasn't consistent with his own principles. It's like, no, this was absolutely consistent with Marat's principles. And then he tried to say that the one who really understood Marat was Charles de Gaulle. And I was like, no,
the
nobody
the real
believes it.
Marat was the friends and enemies we made along the way. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just the dumbest. Well,
You should write
yeah.
that. That should be a good essay title. The real the friends and enemies we made along the way.
That's so like so many of the things that I say. Like these are things we've been saying in the fever swamps of Catholic Twitter. Um, uh, my favorite one comes from Kevin Gallagher, which is the common good is what we do to you. So, say what you will about Kevin. Guy writes bangers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, Pascal Emmanuel Gobry, that we got Franco so wrong.
No, God
Uh,
loves you, Pascal, but we had, you ratioed me on Twitter, so this is my payback.
we're definitely not mad.
Yeah, we're
That's
not
not, we're
mad. You
not
gave us
mad.
a great
Don't let.
opportunity. This was one of my favorite podcasts we've done recently. Thank
Oh,
you.
really?
Yeah.
Don't put it in the newspaper that I'm mad. Right? Like this is an old drill tweet. So this has been a something of an online podcast, pretty online. I regret
Mhm.
nothing. I am so tired. Although
The-
I finally finished the coffee and I'm like at like 100% now. But I just wanted to be mad online for a while, and I'm very good at it.
you know what started this? Pine Sap said, the guy who said he was a fascist on that thing we talked about.
I'm going
He
to
had
say
a,
something controversial about Pine Sap.
yes.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I know more than he does.
That's it. Ron Swanson in
Yeah.
Home Depot.
Yeah. I know more than Pascal does about everything, except maybe France. I mean, I don't mean to be a jerk about this. It's just that like this is just laziness.
Yeah.
Pine Sap is just big mad. Pascal's big mad. I'm sorry, that you wish things had gone differently for Franco. That you wished he was like some crusader, but he was garbage.
Mhm.
He just was. He was
Yeah.
just garbage. Every time he had a chance to do the right thing, he didn't, except one time, which is that he defended the Catholic Church, and even then in a way that was to his own benefit.
Hmm.
So there's an asterisk to that. So
Yeah.
no thanks. I will not call starvation, kidnapping, police extra legal extradition, Judeo Masonic paranoia. I'm not call any of this a wholesome and beautiful culture. All right.
All
Everything
right.
that is wholesome and beautiful in Spain today exists despite Franco.
Yep. All right. That's the mic drop, James. Please like and subscribe, everybody, and tell all your friends about us at Why Postliberalism Failed and our upcoming book, which will be published by Acton Institute sometime in this year or the next year, or
Mm.
hopefully this year.
Hopefully this year. Bye, everybody.